With summer services, it's easy to experiment a little and to try something new. So tonight, in just these few moments, we will learn a little Torah, we will study a little poem, and we'll have a little conversation. So I'd like to hear from you. This is a warning. I'd like to hear from you a little bit tonight, too. So first, the Torah. This week's parsha, Chukat. Vayavo'u b'nei Yisrael kol ha'edah, midbar tzin b'chodesh harishon, vayeshev ha'am b'kadesh. The Israelites arrived as an edah, as a unit, at the wilderness of Tzin on the first new moon. So if it's a new moon, that means, what does it look like at nighttime? Very dark, okay? Tells you something about the setting. And we arrived at a place called Kadesh, which tells us something too. The place is called holiness or sanctity. Vatamot sham Miriam, vatikaber sham. Miriam died there, and she was buried there. That's verse 1. Verse 2 continues that the community was without water, and they joined against Moses and Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, "If only we had perished when our siblings had perished at the instance of God. Why have you brought God's congregation into this wilderness for us and for our beasts to die here? Why did you take us to leave Egypt? Why did you bring us to this wretched place, a place with no grain or figs or vines or pomegranates? There is not even water to drink. Umayim ayin lishtot. There's not even any water to drink." So our sages notice this sort of jump from verse 1 to verse 2. How is it that Miriam died and was buried? And then in the next verse it says, "And there was no water." So you know the rabbis do what they love to do, and they fill in the gaps of Torah, the so-called gaps. Everything in Torah is perfect, but they do notice this leap, and they say, how could it be so? They say it must be cause and effect. It must be that Miriam died, and therefore there was no water. How so? Because Miriam was the keeper of the well. Miriam knew the waterways of the wilderness. And this gives rise, in the Babylonian Talmud, begins, and then centuries are filled with rabbinic folklore about Miriam's miraculous well that traveled with us throughout the 40 years of wilderness wandering. She died, and suddenly there was no water because she was the keeper of that well. The manna and the occasional quail, those were God-given to fill our bellies. But what quenched our thirst? The water from Miriam's well. Moreover, without Miriam and without the water that only she could provide, what happened? We weren't only thirsty, but we quarreled with Moses. And we began to doubt his leadership and his judgment, and we began to long for Egypt. To long for Egypt? When life was so hard, but at least there it was predictable. And of course, we quarreled amongst ourselves as well. All because of lack of water, all because we were without Miriam's leadership. So diaspora communities like ours know that since October 7th, we are bereft and bewildered and beleaguered. So many have been lost, so many have been stolen from us, that it seems that there is no water to sustain us. Since October 7th, there is no shortage of quarreling, no shortage of doubting leadership, here, there, and everywhere. No shortage of anxiety or fear or longing for what we knew before, for the life that was before. So the conversation I'd like to have with you tonight briefly is not about the blame game or the finger pointing. We know that all too well. But instead, I'd like to name what we see people doing like Miriam did to provide for one another? How are we sustaining one another now? What is sustaining us now? How are we reassuring one another and strengthening one another? I admit I see it all over the place. Here at Holy Blossom Temple, I see it all over the place in Israel, to be sure. And so I'd like to call attention to some of these small and large things. So while you're thinking of some examples, I'd like to share with you this little poem called A Good Day. Who can help me? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Michael. So if you have a friend you can share with, that would be great, and then we'll have enough for everyone. So by way of introduction, this poem is called Yom Tov. That can be translated as a good day. It can also be translated as a holiday, right? We say Good Yom Tov. It's Yom Tov, right? So this might be referring to not any good day, but a holy day, and not any holy day, but the holy day that was on October 7th, right? It was, for us, Shmini Atzeret, in Israel, Simchat Torah. So it could be that this poem is meant to call attention to that. The poet is Tal Shavit. She is a co-founder of startups and NGOs, mostly having to do with women's leadership and art. And for more than a decade, she was the director of an organization you may know about. We've hosted them here at Holy Blossom over the years, called Seeds of Peace, a nonprofit organization committed to shared society between Jewish Israelis and Palestinians. So I'll read the poem in English, and from time to time I might pull something up from the Hebrew just for you to catch some of the nuances. The first nuance is in the first line. I know David and Helena are just back from Israel. Welcome. Welcome back. We want to hear all your stories. Those who have traveled to Israel recently know that something has sprung up called Hamal, which in all the city centers, there's a warehouse that has an inventory of all the goods that are coming from donations within Israel and from the diaspora. We at Holy Blossom, in very early days, in October, we shipped out many goods for those chamalim. So here, chamalim is translated as war rooms. It's not really a war room, but a warehouse during wartime. Okay. I want to manage all the war rooms, mobilize all the supply chains. I want to take care of all the children, of all the single mothers and those who are gone. I want to turn myself into protective vests for all the fighters, become iron domes over the heads of all the girls, each and every one, to sustain all the families, the evacuated, the broken, the crushed, return those who were taken, bring back all that is gone, and more literally, bring back the hostages, hachatufim, hachatufot. I want to collect all the donations and take them where they belong, to pass all the messages, to make all the sandwiches, to oversee all the efforts of courage. You can see the word amatz there, all the courageous efforts. But on a good day, I manage sometimes to breathe, sometimes to drink, sometimes to call loved ones. On a good day, I manage sometimes to cry. So here is a character who wants to provide and protect everyone, to provide for and to protect everyone. But she's realistic about what she can and cannot do. And the poem gets very small on the page. You see how it gets thinner and thinner as it goes? Narrower and narrower. I want to do all this, but I know that I can only do this on a good day sometimes. And by chance or by miracle, among the few things that she says she can manage to do on a good day is to drink, like to drink from Miriam's well. So let me ask you, and this poem, I should say, was written in November 2023. So early days. So let me hear from you, please. What have you found to be sustaining? What wells are you drawing from now? Just a few examples would be terrific. What have you found to be sustaining, and what wells are you drawing from?
We've had a horrible lesson reading every day about the complacency of the military on October the 6th, the day before.
Okay, so that is an important exercise, 100%. For the sake of the theme of the parsha that I'm lifting up now, I want to stay with what are the wells that we're drawing from to sustain us, okay? What you're saying is very important, Michael. Yes, please. Friendship. Yeah. Yeah, some of us have lost some friends, some of us have found some friends, and many friendships have been deepened and enriched. Please.
Connection.
Yes, okay, similar theme that's sustaining you. And? Grandchildren and family. Yes, yes. I'm hearing more and more about Shabbat tables and just really holding our loved ones close. Toy. Strength. Yeah. Can you give an example of what brings strength?
To keep moving forward and lift up everybody that is still there.
Okay. Yeah. So one foot in front of the other and just feeling that momentum carry us some days. Yeah, Mike?
Sharing jokes with my friends, we still have to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, have you heard Seinfeld talk about how important laughter is now? Even though he did go to Israel and he cried a lot, he came back saying laughter is still important to sustain us. Please. Yeah, where do you find it? Hope. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, coming to shul. It feels good. Yeah, and we had our Tat Shabbat service tonight as well. Fantastic. Okay, so one concluding question then. How are we sustaining others? If Miriam was providing for others, if our poet here is dreaming of all the ways that she can provide for others, how are we sustaining others? And if you're too modest to point to yourself, maybe you'll want to point to another example of someone who has provided for you somehow, lifting you up, sustaining you.
Stepping outside and volunteering instead of remaining cloistered up.
Yeah, the volunteering that we do. Yes, I remember in early days after October 7th, I sent a video message before Shabbat to the congregation, 7 things you can do. And people said, keep them coming. It's the only thing that helps me to keep from despair and feeling so helpless. So the next message was 10 more things you can do. Right, please, Ellen.
Being a good listener.
Yes, that's becoming more and more important, being a good listener, and sometimes hard, too. I had one hard conversation this week. Yeah.
Just being there for someone.
Yeah, just being there. Did you have your hand up? No, okay. All right, so I hope a little inspiration from Miriam and her well, and always inspiration from Israel and the creativity that continues to spring from there.